You know that feeling when you suddenly find yourself doing something, like grabbing a snack or maybe checking your phone,
Uh-huh.
and you didn't really, decide to do it, it just sort of happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
Hmm.
easy to think, oh, I just lack willpower.
Exactly. But what if it's less about willpower and more about, well, the environment around you? Something quieter, maybe?
That's precisely it. We put so much weight on our internal drive, motivation.
Right.
But today, in this deep dive, we're exploring Chapter 6 of James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Ah, okay. Chapter 6.
And it really digs into how our surroundings often subtly shape what we do every day.
Okay, so chapter 6 is arguing motivation might be a bit overrated.
In a way, yes. Or at least the environment plays a much bigger, maybe starring role than we often admit.
Hmm.
It brings up this idea of choice architecture.
Choice architecture. What exactly does that mean?
It's basically how the options we face are presented. The way choices are structured can, well, significantly nudge our actions one way or another.
Okay, so it's not just abstract theory then.
Not at all. Understanding this gives you, the listener, real practical strategies.
How so?
Well, you can actually start designing your own environment consciously to support the habits you want.
And maybe make the unwanted ones a little harder.
Exactly. It's about making progress feel, well, almost effortless, creating a smoother path.
Okay, let's get concrete. That hospital study you mentioned, Anne Thorndike.
Yes, at Massachusetts General Hospital. A great example from the chapter.
So picture this hospital cafeteria. Lots of people making quick food and drink choices.
Right. And initially, the setup was pretty standard. Refrigerators right by the cash registers, stocked only with soda.
Makes sense. Easy grab and go, probably high profit margin.
It does. But Thorndike's team saw this as, well, choice architecture already in action. Soda was the obvious choice right there at the checkout.
The most convenient?
Precisely. So they decided to subtly tweak that architecture. They added water to all the refrigerators, not just a separate one. And they also put baskets of bottled water near the food stations, other places you might grab something.
And the results were pretty striking, weren't they?
They really were. Over just 3 months, and this is the crucial part, with no posters, no announcements, no pep talks.
Just changing the layout.
Just changing the environment.
Yep.
Soda sales dropped by 11.4%,
Yeah.
and sales of bottled water, they jumped up by 25.8%.
That's a big shift just from making water more visible and available.
It really underscores the point. Often we choose what's easy, what's right in front of us, not necessarily what we'd say we want if you asked us directly.
Location, location, location.
But for choices.
Kind of, yeah. It shows how our environment can guide us, almost unconsciously.
It really makes you think about, those cookies sitting on the kitchen counter.
Or the donuts that just magically appear in the office break room.
Exactly. You weren't even thinking about them, but bam, there they are.
And you grab one. This connects to a classic idea in psychology, Kurt Lewin's equation. B equals F, P-E. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment.
Right. It's not just about the person, your personality, your goals.
Yeah.
The E, the environment, is a massive factor.
Our surroundings pull on us.
A significant pull. And, businesses have known this for ages.
Oh, yeah.
Way back in the 1950s, Hawkins Stern talked about suggestion impulse buying.
Suggestion impulse buying. Sounds about right.
His point was that just seeing a product can basically create a need you didn't know you had.
Like in supermarkets.
Absolutely. Think
Yeah.
about it. Where are the expensive big-name brands usually placed?
Right, at eye level. Always.
Exactly. Because that's where you're most likely to see them. The cheaper stuff, often higher up or way down low.
You have to look for it.
And those displays at the end of the aisles. The end caps.
Prime real estate.
Totally. For a company like Coca-Cola, apparently a huge portion of their sales comes just from those end cap displays. High visibility.
So the more visible something is.
The more likely we are to consume it or buy it. Think Bud Light in bars or Starbucks seemingly on every corner.
It feels like a conscious choice, but maybe it's just there, obvious.
Often, yeah, we're drawn to what's prominent. It's not always about some deep, pre-existing desire we're fulfilling.
And our eyes play a huge role in this, right? The chapter mentions something about sensory receptors.
It does. It's staggering, really. We have something like 11 million sensory receptors in our bodies.
11 million.
And guess how many are dedicated to vision?
Most of them.
10 million.
Wow.
Yeah. And a huge chunk of our brain power is apparently used just for processing what we see. So it's really no surprise that visual cues are such powerful drivers of our behavior.
What we see massively impacts what we do.
Which brings us back to the empowering part. Chapter 6 really emphasizes this. You have agency. You're not just passive.
We can design our environment.
You can be the architect of your surroundings, shaping them to support your goals, not sabotage them.
I like that, being the architect. The chapter had another good example about energy use in the Netherlands.
Oh, right. The Dutch study during the oil crisis, that was fascinating.
They found some homes used way less energy than others, even though the houses were identical.
Exactly. Identical houses, similar families probably. The key difference turned out to be the location of the electricity meter.
The meter? How?
Well, in the homes that used less energy, the meter was in a really visible spot, like the main hallway.
So they saw it all the time.
Right. Their energy consumption was obvious, constantly in their line of sight. In the other homes, it was hidden away in the basement.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Precisely. Making the feedback on their energy use obvious, led to a real change in behavior.
Which makes sense when you think about the opposite. Hidden cues are so easy to ignore.
Totally. That guitar you want to play more, if it's in the closet.
You forget about it. Or those books you mean to read in the guest room.
Or the vitamins shoved at the back of the pantry. Hidden cues just don't trigger action.
It reminds me of that airport example, too. Schiphol. With the flies.
Huh. Yes, the urinal stickers. It sounds funny, but it's brilliant.
What did they do again?
They just etched a tiny image of a fly near the drain in the men's room urinals.
Okay, why?
Apparently, it gives men something to aim for, instinctively.
Seriously?
Apparently so. And the result was reportedly an 8% reduction in bathroom cleaning costs because there was less spillage.
Wow. A tiny visual cue changes behavior and saves money.
It's a perfect illustration. A tiny environmental tweak, a significant behavioral shift, and we can apply this ourselves.
Yeah, I actually tried something like this after reading about it. Apples.
Oh, yeah.
I used to buy apples, stick them in the crisper drawer in the fridge.
And then find them weeks later looking a bit sad.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind. So I just got a nice bowl, put it right on the kitchen counter, and filled it with apples.
Made them obvious.
Totally obvious. And guess what? I started eating them almost automatically, just because they were there.
That's it. That's making the cue obvious.
Wow.
Chapter 6 gives loads of practical tips like that.
Like putting your medication right by the bathroom sink.
Yep. Or leaving the guitar you want to play on a stand in the living room, not hidden away.
Make it easy to see, easy to grab.
Want to write more thank you notes? Keep the stationery right there on your desk. Drink more water.
Keep water bottles everywhere you usually hang out.
Exactly. Fill them up and leave them in plain sight. Sprinkle triggers for good habits throughout your environment.
It reminds me of the flip side, like how smokers often have triggers everywhere, the coffee break.
Right. Certain context becomes strongly associated with the habit. You can consciously build those associations for good habits, too.
So it's not just one trigger, but the whole context.
That's another key idea from the chapter. The context becomes the cue. Habits get tied to the entire environment where they usually happen.
Like social drinking, it's not just one thing, right? It's the friends, the music, the setting.
The whole atmosphere signals drink. We build these mental links between habits and locations, home, office, gym, that coffee shop.
And even our relationship with things in those places, like my couch could be for reading.
While for someone else, the exact same couch is purely for watching TV and snacking. Same object, different cues based on past associations.
But the good news is we can change those associations or build new ones.
Definitely. The chapter mentions that study with insomniacs.
Right, where they had to get out of bed if they weren't sleepy.
Yeah. They were trained to associate the bed only with sleep. If they were awake, they had to leave the room. Over time, the bed itself became a powerful cue for sleep.
So associating a specific context with a specific habit.
Exactly. And this is why changing your environment can be such a powerful hack for changing habits.
Going somewhere new.
Yeah. A new environment doesn't have all those old, ingrained triggers whispering in your ear.
Like trying to eat healthier by shopping at a completely different grocery store.
Could work. You're not on autopilot down the usual aisles, or reading in a different park, or working from a library instead of home sometimes. It breaks the old patterns.
Okay, but what if you can't just, move or go somewhere new all the time?
Good point. You can redefine your existing environment. The chapter pushes this idea. One space, one use.
Dedicate spaces for specific things.
Try to, yeah. If your couch is for work and relaxing and eating, the cues get muddled.
I definitely find it harder to focus working on the couch versus at a desk.
Makes sense. Having a dedicated workspace, even if it's just a corner, Helps your brain switch into work mode when you're there. Ideally, each space has one primary job.
It's tricky, though, especially with things like smartphones, right? We use them for everything.
That's a perfect example of mixed contexts. You pick up your phone intending to do work email,
And suddenly you're checking social media or playing a game.
because the device itself is loaded with cues for all those different activities. And often the easier, more ingrained habit, the quick dopamine hit, wins out.
So even if space is tight,
You can still try to create mental zones. Maybe use your laptop only for work and your tablet only for reading or entertainment. Use different apps on different devices if possible.
create separation even within the digital space.
Anything to make the environment more stable, where things have a clear place and purpose, that's where habits form most easily.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into Chapter 6, the big takeaway really seems to be that small environmental tweaks can have a surprisingly big impact on behavior.
Absolutely. It's often less about mustering superhuman willpower and more about, well, smart environmental design. Make the good choice the easy, obvious choice.
Make those cues for the habits you want super visible, super accessible.
Exactly. Put them right in your path.
And then, over time, the context itself, the room, the time of day, the situation starts to become the cue.
It gets baked in. The whole environment signals the habit, making it feel more automatic.
And don't forget the power of a fresh start if you can get it. New places lack old triggers.
A clean slate can make building new habits feel much easier.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener. Just take a second right now. Look around where you are. What cues are around you? What's easy to reach? What's visible?
What might be subtly nudging you right now?
And think. Is there one tiny change you could make to your immediate environment right now or later today based on this?
Just one small tweak to make a desired action a little more obvious, or an undesired one a little less so.
Maybe move the fruit bowl, put your running shoes by the door, hide the remote.
Experiment with it. Just one small environmental change. See what happens. You might be surprised how effortless progress can feel when your environment is on your side.